Hey guys, I'm Scott Oots. Today I'm here with my buddy Aaron, and we are going to be spending an hour talking about questions he has so I can help him hopefully get to the next level within his business. All right, what's going on, everybody? I'm Scott Oots. Today, I am hanging out with Aaron Gaunt. Aaron reached out to me on Instagram probably about a week ago, something like that. Had a few questions for me, and I said, you know what, man? I don't want to answer this on here. Let's bring you on. Let's let you ask these questions. So if anyone else is wondering what the heck is going on or has the same type of questions, everyone can get it at once. So that's what I wanted to do. What's going on, Aaron?
Hey, what's up, Scott? Thank you so much for hopping on here.
Yeah. So tell us about yourself, kind of what you've done in business, area you work in, stuff like that.
Well, first off, I just want to again thank you so much. I mean, people literally pay, and I would pay you for just this opportunity to speak with you. But you freely said, "Hey, let's hop on. Let's shoot a video." I think that's pretty awesome.
Let's have fun. That's what it's all about. So let's have a good time.
Absolutely. And just like we talked about, I had a beer, and I might have a couple sips.
There we go.
But before that, I'm basically who I am is I've been doing this for about a year now. I bought some, basically long story short, I was actually having a custody battle with my little girl. I realized I needed some money. And my 9 to 5, I was a fireman down in San Diego, so we're actually kind of in the same market. I don't live in San Diego, I actually live in Temecula, so very close to you. But anyways, so I actually got found in Wholesale. I realized I needed to get into real estate. I thought, how can I get into real estate without any money, let alone I was in debt to my attorney? And I found Wholesale. And within 2 weeks, I signed up for a course. And then got my first deal about 2 months later. And I mean, just didn't stop from there. I've spent so much money, obviously, investing in myself. Watched all your videos, obviously. And you're a big inspiration to, obviously, us in our market.
Thank you.
But anyway, so when I reached out to you, I actually had a deal back, I think it was in August. So I locked up the contract, locked it up, and I actually already sold it to a great buyer of ours. Love doing deals with him. And it was going to be a good, I think it was like a 77 spread, right? Mm-hmm. We were about to make some good money on it. Well, anyways, they decided to go and list it with a real estate agent. So I was like, dang, and usually, I love what I love about your some of your videos are your case studies, and you get to kind of hear some of the struggles during those deals. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, that's like one of mine right now. Well, anyways, so I went and I was thinking, okay, I'm okay about canceling a contract if there was like other different type of reasons. But it was one of those deal killers. A sister-in-law got into their ear and said you should list it, etc. Mm-hmm. So I said, oh man. So I talked to my attorney and stuff like that. And he said we can move forward. It might be a little hard. You might be chasing around stuff, and also your contract is it's not as strong as we would want it to be. Yeah. So I talked to him and it was going to be a couple $100 to switch it up or whatever, but I've become obsessed with this real estate thing that obviously I've listened to many podcasts. I've listened to the wisdom that you put out there. And one thing I've always liked hearing are the teeth in your contracts. And I know a lot of times you talk about the buyer side, but I've never heard much about the seller side. And so I reached out to you. And again, your responses were great. I just wanted to ask if I could add any value, if you were able to share your contracts. And you're like, I can do that and plus some. Let's hop you on and let's give you some advice.
Yeah. And you know why that is. So a little advice for anyone that watches this, right? I get probably 100 messages a day. People are saying, it might be a little under that, but, people asking a lot of questions, things like that. But there's very little people that come and say, hey, I'm in need of something. How can I add value to you? And that's one really important thing, because I can sit and give all day long, right? And I can do that, but I also have a business to run. So, a lot of people say, hey, can I take you to lunch? Can I take you to coffee? It's like, well, Yeah, I mean, potentially, but if I did that with everyone, I would never be in the office and I'd eat 50 times a day. So when people come forward and say, hey, how can I add some value to you? That little thing to a lot of people out there in any industry, just that one thing of saying, hey, I do need something, but I'm not asking for that without me trying to give you something in return, without me trying to offer you something. And it may not be that we need anything in return, but it's the offer of it. And that is so important when you look at that stuff. I mean, I'm not taking anything from you. Hopefully I add value to you. But the fact that you offer that, that's fantastic, and I respect that. So my contracts, yes, if we haven't given those to you yet, you're going to get them. I gave them to Cody yesterday. So he's got them to get to you. First, I want to ask you about something that you said there. So you said you bought a course. What'd you buy?
Yeah, so great question. First thing I hopped into, I knew I needed. I went down YouTube University. I knew I needed to get into some kind of coaching program to pass that learning curve. Mm-hmm. I signed up for Wholesale Inc. I actually put that on a credit card.
All right.
But obviously, I learned tenfold, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. After that, I actually went to another course. I went to Real Estate Instructors with Steve Trang, an amazing company, and him and his partner Max. Yep. Love them to death. So went out there to Phoenix not too long ago. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I've done John Martinez. Mm-hmm. So learned some sales skills, and you guys have your sales process as well.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about that too.
And you know what's cool? So like you look at, so all those guys are good guys. Tom Kroll, he's got a great program going there. Steve Trang, I'm in a mastermind with him. John Martinez as well. So those guys I see very often. I'm seeing Steve next month in Phoenix. So Steve's got his sales training, right? And John's got his sales training, and I've got my sales training. And you start looking at it and you say, oh my gosh, this is a lot. But when you really look at it, so John Martinez is one of the first sales trainings I took, and I respect the hell out of that guy. And if anyone says real estate wholesaling, who is the sales trainer? Who is the number one? John Martinez is always that one that comes out of everyone's mouth, which is well deserved. That guy deserves that recognition for what he's done. But lately you've seen other people start to come out with things, right? Steve's got his, and we've got ours. But it's all different approaches. And the way I always say is take as many as you can take. And then from that point, you're never going to follow exactly John Martinez. You're never going to follow exactly Steve. You're never going to follow exactly what we do. But you're going to find those bits and pieces from each one of them, and then you're going to develop how you want to sell based on that. Because if you took exactly what I do, it's not going to work for you. There's no way it's going to work for you because it's fake when it comes out to a seller, right? You got to learn it yourself, and you've got to kind of almost become your own salesman based on the things you're learning, and even stuff you took from Wholesaling Inc. as well. I always recommend getting training from multiple sources because you're learning so many different ways of doing things. But you've also done a lot of stuff, right? So hold off on more and more subscription stuff and start making a ton of money on it, right? Because now you know the base of it. And honestly, I'd say the next step for you, after you start making a bunch of money on this, is a mastermind. I mean, when you look at what really took me and made me go 5-fold, 10-fold in business, that was when I joined a mastermind. And I still am in part of 2 today. I'm in part of one that's Collective Genius, and then one that I run myself just with Steve Trang and some of the other guys. But you know, we get together once a quarter and just talk about what's working, what's not working. And I've got to say, being in a mastermind has probably saved me millions of dollars in losses from stupid stuff that I thought would have been smart to do, but I realized they've already done it and it didn't work, right? Or they've done it and they made an adjustment, which in turn I implemented and made me millions. So masterminds are really the next step, but there's a lot of them out there. There really is, and I know that Flip Talk's got a pretty cool mastermind setup as well. That's Don Costa. So there's some cool ones out there. Sean Terry's got one, and he was my mentor. There's some really cool masterminds out there, but you know, until you're ready, don't go start, because those will probably cost you, 15, 20 grand. Don't go and pull all your money out of your savings account and then go sign up for masterminds. They don't have any money to run your business. So That's definitely important, but you're growing. So let's talk. It's been a year. So the deal you were talking about, 70,000 roughly spread. So obviously, a red light goes off in my head as you're going through this, and I'm like, man, this realtor took this from you. Let me kind of tell you the approach I would have taken on that. Now, did you have the contract signed already at that point with the sellers?
Yeah, we had a escrow with earnest money deposit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Has the house sold, or is it still available?
I think it's actually pending, so I think the agent has it pending. But my lady's an agent, and I just told her, don't tell me about it. Let's just work on these other deals.
Okay. So what I probably would have done at that point is I probably would have tried to file a memorandum on that property. So if it goes to sell, it alerts that someone else had contractual interest in it. So when you start bringing attorneys in, right? Cha-ching, 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 you're spending. A lot of times $300, $350 an hour to do this. And if it's a new attorney, they're going to ask you for a $4,000 or $5,000 retainer to even get started. A memorandum is very simple to file. Now, what we started doing is whenever a seller signs a contract with us, we have a mobile notary go to that seller the next day and get a notarized copy of that contract. Because
every single contract?
Every single one. So we spend, with all the deals we do, we spend about $1,600 to $1,700 a month in mobile notaries. But let me explain why. So if you had a notarized copy of that contract and you went to the county and filed a memorandum on the property, that costs you $35, $40 to get filed. If you needed to actually file a lis pendens, do you know the difference between a lis pendens and a memorandum?
I know, obviously, the lis pendens is obviously filing that lawsuit against them. I don't know the memorandum. So.
Okay, so a memorandum, what it does is the county files it against the properties. So if anyone goes to buy the property, when they run their reports on the property for title and everything like that, they're going to see, hey, there's an alert. Somebody has some type of interest in this property. And they'll be able to pull up your name, and most likely they're going to call you and say, hey, Aaron, I see you got this memorandum filed here. What's going on with this? I'm looking at buying this property. You can say, hey, sellers technically already sold me the property, but they're not going through. So we're securing our interest. Now, either that buyer will go away, or that buyer will say, well, how much for you to release it? It'll be 50 grand for me to release it. Sometimes they'll pay it, right? So that's one way to do it, but a memorandum is easier for them to get around. A lis pendens, so in a lot of states, if somebody files a lis pendens, typically you're going to need an attorney to do that. By the time you file it, you're looking at $3 to $4 grand in attorney's fees, most likely by the time that thing's filed. Now, in a lot of states, you can file a lis pendens and just sit and wait. In California, you can't. If you file a lis pendens, you have to file a lawsuit in conjunction with the lis pendens. So now you start just racking up attorney's fees, and it gets really expensive. So that's why we started getting notarized contracts, because we can file a memorandum for a cost of, with the mobile notary and the memorandum being filed, you're looking at $100 versus $4 grand.
That's such a good idea.
So it saved us a ton.
That's why we talked about that. That information, that right there, is hundreds of dollars of mentorship right there. Thank you again so much.
And it saved me. I mean, it saved me probably $100 grand in attorney's fees doing that. Just in the last probably 10 to 12 months. When I was doing lis pendens on all these properties where sellers were going away, I mean, we were spending $200 grand a year in attorney's fees.
Man.
So it gets expensive, right? And I can definitely go through some of those, but it gets expensive. So if you can save money by doing it the other way, it makes a big difference. But with these sellers in particular, I would have first written up a notice to perform and sent that to their house. Send it FedEx or UPS with a signature confirmation overnight that says, hey, here you go, man. You signed this contract with me. Here's a copy of this contract. It says right here it's non-cancelable. And now you sign this property with a realtor. You have X amount of days to perform or you'll be sued. And the thing is now you're creating a paper trail because you sent that FedEx with a tracking number. They signed for it at the house. It shows they received it. So, I mean, you can decide what to do even on this one. If that realtor still has that house pending, you can still send them that and say, here's the deal. This house is pending right now, and technically you're already in contract with me. So you're selling your house to 2 people right now. You can't sell the same house to 2 people. That's fraud. So, but that's your decision on what you want to do. I mean, that's 70 grand. That's a lot of money.
It's like, what do you want to risk, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
About $10,000 in attorney fees for 70 grand.
Yep.
And that's what my attorney. I talked to him, and we even sent like kind of, I guess, threats or whatever, just saying, hey, this is what we're gonna do.
Yep.
And I was trying to work with him. I really tried to go back and forth. Hey, we can even come up on price, etc. But it was just nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get anything back. That's why this is some great information right here.
So the sellers just basically ghosted you at that point, and then they listed it. So they stopped taking your calls? Okay.
Yeah. We just said, F you, we're going to do it.
Have you talked to that realtor at all that's listed it?
Yeah, that realtor, he went off on, he actually sent a nice little nasty email to myself as well. But what can you do, That's why I just said, okay, let's just move forward and let's see if we get some contracts and change our contract a little bit and put some teeth in it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if that one's pending and you want to try to force that one a little bit, get the info over to me and I can look at it because we can send that basically with that real estate agent stepping in, knowing you exist. Yep. What he's doing is called tortious interference. So he's actually interfering with your ability to perform on your contract. Yeah. And he knows of you. So therefore, his broker would actually be responsible for his actions. So I don't go to the agents anymore. I tell them first, hey, FYI, I got a contract on this property. If they don't walk away willingly within 24 hours, I don't talk to them anymore. I want to go to their boss because a broker is responsible for the actions of their agent. So now I send a cease and desist letter with my attorney's letterhead on it to the brokerage saying, hey, if you have proof of your insurance, I need that because we're going to sue you. And if you have E&O insurance, I am going to need to file a claim against your E&O insurance. You are responsible for all of my losses and damages incurred. You need to get your agent under control, and he needs to back off this property and pull it off the MLS immediately. And once you go to the broker, they don't want to get sued. So a lot of times they'll go to the agent and say, you're going to get that off of MLS immediately. And you'll see that listing come down real quick in most cases. But the agent doesn't care. But the broker does. So we can try something if you want on that one. You just got to get me the info, or you can let it go and move on. It's up to you.
I like that. We actually did reach out to the broker as well. We couldn't get a hold of them. Like I said, that's why I was like, okay. It was kind of like, it was one of those deals that really hurt, kept me up at night. I was like, we got these other deals that we can focus on. But like you said, it does take that tenacious hunger to get it done, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's still an escrow. I'll send you all the information. Cathedral City. Well, we can do this.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's pending right now, I would actually consider filing a rush Liz pendants on it. And because if you can get that Liz pendants indexed before their final title search, if they still close it, title insurance kicks in and you get paid out. So there's a lot of ways to do it. We can talk a little more about that. But sometimes these are the decisions you got to make as a business owner, right? Like you said the right thing. Is it worth it just to move forward and not waste our time on it? Or do I actually want to fight this and take time away from other things? Those are the decisions you have to make as you start growing. And I make those decisions every day with my team. I mean, we're the 14th today, and we've got 13 contracts in for the month. So we are moving so fast right now. I went to my attorney for all of our open issues, and I said, all right, cancel this one, this one, this one, and this one. I told him 4 of them that he needs to cancel. He's like, wait, we're going to win this. And I said, well, but we've gotten so many contracts lately that I know we're going to have more that come up as issues. So I'm clearing my plate and clearing your plate to be able to give you more as they come.
Right.
So, you make decisions like that, and I probably walked away from potentially $150,000 in income from some of these lawsuits. But I was going to have to spend an additional 40 to 50 grand to get those to where they need to be. So those are those decisions you make, and it gets tough. So tell me about the rest of your deals. How many deals have you done in total?
So I've done about 10 so far, and I'm right here in the Inland Empire. Not even in the Inland Empire. I'm just right here in Riverside County. I've done, I think we're about to lock one up today. We've done 2 in Fallbrook. So the one would be probably 11. But anyways, like I said, it's been a year. I was starting to kind of start hiring now. Actually, so I quit my job. I was fireman down there. Decided to take that lead and be home full time. And now I'm like, I even have a mentor now. He's a great guy. And what we're trying to do now is build a kind of an in-house team. Very lean and mean. That's why I look up to you so much, because that would be one of my questions too, such as that leadership. And like you said, it's you got to make those tough decisions. That structure. So what I did is I hired out. Like I had like a cold caller. I had this DA. I had 2 drivers for my drive for dollars. And then I realized it was slowing down. I realized I needed to bring it back in, take it kind of back over, and we've been really restructuring. And now at this moment, I've never had this many hot leads in my life. So, that's what the growing pains are, right? Just keep retracting, growing, retracting, and growing. So that's where we're at right now.
So you're doing, you're currently doing Drive for Dollars as well. So you got 2 drivers out there, you said?
Not anymore. So what we do right now is me and my lady. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays we go driving.
Okay.
And I did have drivers at first, but now only on Tuesday and Thursday we go drive, and literally about 2 hours a day those days. And last week we had about 2,800 pins. This week we have 2,200 pins, and just every week we're marketing to that. We skip trace it to that last name. We have a whole system for that. And then what we do is we text them on Monday. We cold call them throughout the week, and then we mail the rest that weren't contacted. So that's where we're at right now. Kind of that conveyor belt system.
Nice. You got that from Max?
Yeah. Hey, well, when you become obsessed, you got to watch everything. You find those like little details from everything, and you basically grow just by those little nuggets.
No, it's very true, and I think that's one thing that I've seen Max present that he does very well. Right? He really makes sure that he's utilizing every dollar that he's spending in marketing, and his conveyor belt system. I mean, it works. It's really good. As you get larger, it gets tougher, right? Because at a certain point, you got to look at the amount of time you're spending on each of these things. And I do kind of a revised conveyor belt that I don't know if would even really run. But we do a lot of mail, right? A lot of mail, a lot of texting, but we're also doing it on a very large scale. And as we're doing that, I mean, we're spending probably 60 grand a month in marketing, pushing all these things out. But in turn, we're making sure that we utilize every lead we can, and we don't hit them first with a text and then cold call. We literally open up the floodgates and hit them every way possible. So they're going to know who we are, right? We've got TV commercials now. We've got a lot of different things we're doing to try to get leads in different ways. But the thing, as you scale, you'll realize isn't as feasible anymore is some of the Drive for Dollars and some of those type of things. And that stuff kind of falls by the wayside a lot of times, because you start looking at it and saying, man, I've got to really utilize my time to the best of my ability because I'm spending so much in marketing. Now, if I was to go out in that car and drive around for 8 hours, how much money did that cost me to actually go do that I could have been in the office closing leads? So we do a little bit of it when my sales reps go to appointments, but it's slowed down a little bit just because we have so many leads coming in from every other channel. So it definitely changes as you grow, but the thing is what you're doing that is so great is by doing that Drive for Dollars, you're getting a lot of those leads that aren't being marketed to by other companies. So I would guess that 90% of those that you are going to are probably not people I've marketed to, and we're both right here, right? So that's an advantage for you. Well, it's an advantage for both of us, right? It's a little less competition for each of the things. So you look at that and say, okay, keep doing stuff like that and keep scaling that. You're going to keep those leads in that people aren't getting. But make sure you're also tracking your return on investment very closely with that, because you're to the point now where you don't have a hobby anymore, right? You have a business now. So you need to start really making sure you're tracking your return. You're tracking KPIs, basically, right? Your key performance indicators. How many calls did it take you to get a lead? How many leads did it take you to get a contract? How many contracts to closing, right? So if you start tracking those things, but you start utilizing different phone numbers for all of your marketing, you're going to start really being able to pinpoint where your best leads are coming from. What you might find is it might surprise you. You might say, man, being out there driving for dollars is getting me this, but maybe cold calling's not getting you anything and texting's getting you the majority of your leads, right? Or maybe you find mail is what's actually getting you your contracts. If you have different phone numbers on all those marketing channels, like through CallRail, then at that point you can go ahead and really drill down into what is getting you your return. Because it shifts. Like I look at pay-per-click for me. When I started my business, that was 99% of my income. Every dollar I spent on that, I brought in like 20. So then all of a sudden I realized pay-per-click isn't what it used to be. It shifted. And now mail is higher for me. Then text came out and text became higher. So make sure you're constantly utilizing different channels, or, you know, as something changes, you might realize that you don't have the return that you thought you had, or you're like, oh my God, I brought in 100 grand, but you realize you spent 80 grand to make 100, right? And then at that point, when you start really looking at your KPIs per marketing channel, it's eye-opening. So it's stuff to really make sure that you're looking at. Are you guys using a system at all to keep all your leads in?
Yeah, so what we do is I have a now Podium. My first big deal to do this, I have what's it called, a souped up Podio. I use a Wholesale Hacker. What I like about them is that they basically just, you know, did all their tweaks to it, and I know like monthly subscription, so it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, what I wanted to do is so I could have all my follow-up campaigns through there, so that if I can't get a hold of somebody, obviously they're still getting followed up as I'm working on others.
Good.
Yeah, we got the call rail, obviously. We have a whole KPI thing. My lady, she used to be an operations manager, so she has a whole KPI sheet on just killing it with that. So, yeah, it's looking pretty good right now.
Good. So you're getting a good setup. So it's the two of you guys right now, right? And you're looking at hiring?
Yeah, so that's kind of where we were at. And like I said, I love the videos where I see you and your team and the culture, and obviously that's kind of where we want to be at now. So again, I tested that outside cold calling, that outside VA, the outside whatever, and now I'm like, okay, let's try to start bringing this in house. And so our team structure, what we're kind of looking at is what we want to get is an in-house admin to do a lot of things. We have a whole list of things that we need them to do. A cold caller, we kind of want to go with the in-house cold callers, one or two, you know, nothing too crazy, and then an in-house acquisitions manager. So I would take over the acquisition, like sales side. She would handle the operations side. That's kind of where we're at right now. So just kind of start building that small culture.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, obviously hiring a cold caller in California is going to be a little expensive. So that's going to add up a little bit. So, I mean, that might be something. You can still hire someone direct, but you can hire a VA for that, right? You start looking at that. I mean, you hire someone here to call 40 hours a week. If you're paying them, you know, $15, $18 an hour or something like that, that's going to get pretty expensive on that area when you could potentially go hire a VA and hire 4 of them for that price. Right. So that's something to consider.
Yeah, so I hired my first cold caller. I don't know if I should say the name of the company, but anyways, it was about $20 an hour. Yep. And it's not too bad. But we got one deal out of it. It was a good $50,000 deal, so it paid for itself. And I think I bought it for like 3 months. But at the end, it was just they weren't pushing great leads. Yeah. And when I was on the dialer, I felt like I was pushing 2 hot leads a day. And so, yeah, I was just kind of like, okay, so what I'm trying to do right now is really look for people maybe in our area who want to get into the business, and we could kind of help them out with things and go on the dialer as we're teaching them how to do it.
Yeah, and I mean that's something I've considered as well. The only reason I've steered away from that is because as you're growing your business, you also have to look out for yourself too. And if you constantly have people in that you're training in the business over and over and over again, at a certain point you realize that, man, you should have just hired an employee, because you want to try to find people that want to stay very long term. But if their intention is to go and start their business, most likely they're not going to be long term. And when we look at my team out here, I mean, no one's left in over 2 years willingly, right? So I mean, we've let some people go, but no one's turned in notice in 2 years. And I love that. And I considered hiring the people that wanted to get going, but then I'm like, man, the amount of questions that are going to come my way every day, you're almost developing like a mentorship of people in your office. And I'm like, man, I don't know if that would be the best utilization of time, because I don't feel like I would get as far as I need to get with that. So that's why I steered from it. And that's why I decided to start using VA cold callers, because I'm like, that seems like a good option for me. The thing that you were going to realize, and you made the perfect point there, that when you were doing it, you got multiple hot leads a day, right? As you start farming out each of your job responsibilities to employees, no one is going to step in and do it as good as you will.
No, and not exactly.
Yep, that's the hardest part.
You probably dealt with the same thing, and that's actually a perfect question that I would have for you. You said it, nobody's left your business. So tell me about that. Tell me, what is that leadership that you're like really implemented in your business? What do you think is like the key things?
I think part of it is we celebrate the wins and we're not blaming the losses, right? So what I mean by that is we don't go and pinpoint to someone and say, hey, you screwed up, you're fired. We try to really have a good time. We try to really motivate people to want more. I try to look to see what it is my team wants to accomplish, even in life, and we try to help them get there. For example, a couple weeks ago, we had our team do dream boards. So we had each of them get those big like poster boards, and we told them to go home, and we want them to come in with a dream board. What is it that they want to accomplish in life, right? What do they want to do in the next 12 months, the next 5 years, 10 years? Could be you want to buy a car. It could be you want to go on a vacation. It could be you want to start a family. And we did this probably about 9 months ago, and then we had them do it again. And when the team did it, I was taking notes on some of the things they want to accomplish, so I can try to figure out how can I help them get there. And we invest in our team inside and outside of the office. We want to help them get there. And Lindsay and my assistant had on her dream board at that time that she wanted to buy a new house in a neighborhood that was safer, that she loved. She accomplished it. Mike, my COO, he had the same thing. He wanted to buy his first house with a pool in the back for his son, and he got it, right? Nick wanted to start a family. Now he's expecting. I can't say we helped there, but, just being able to, see what it is that people want to accomplish and how we can help them get there. Like, I went with Mike to go look at houses with his realtor, and I don't know how many we looked at. Like, I was there to be able to go do that with him and walk through that stuff, right?
I think I saw his house. I followed Mike, and what does he have that? I think I saw him give him some shots to his neighbors.
Yes. Yep. He's got some pretty cool neighbors in there. But being able to not just say, hey, you're coming to work 9 to 5 and I don't care about you after that. It's how can we help you accomplish the things you want in life? And a lot of them, at first the goals were just very broad. And this time, now doing it again, and as they were writing their boards, they started saying, man, we did accomplish a lot of these things. Now I want to go bigger. And their goals this time were much more specific. A lot of money targeting goals. Savings goals. And for us, that's one thing I am good at. How can I help you get to that savings level, right? And if I need to sit down and review finances with you, your personal finances, I'll do that on my own time. Let's sit down and do it. But the same thing I tell my team, I've offered. If you don't accept, I'm not going to keep coming to you and saying, hey, let's do that. You have to show effort in this as well. And if you come to me and say, hey, Scott, I'm ready to go through this, let's go through it. And let's figure out how to put 50 grand into your savings account. Let's figure that out. You know, what a lot of people don't think about is retirement, right? They say, oh, I'm too young to have to worry about that. I mean, let's be honest. You really think there's going to be Social Security at the point we're ready to retire? I mean, probably not. So we need to make sure that we have money set aside so we don't have to work till we're 90 years old. So that's the stuff I want to help my team with. We celebrate these wins, but we also, everyone in this office is friends. And that's a good and bad thing, right? But we know when it's time to work, and we know when it's time to have fun. And for us, we know what each person's responsibility is, and I always refer to it as a chain. Everybody's a link in that chain. And if you hold the chain up like this and a link falls out, the chain falls, right? So everybody has a specific thing they need to do within this business, and that link pertains to that specific item. And if they don't do it, so let's just throw an example out. Salespeople lock up a deal. My transaction coordinator, let's say he failed to do his part in the middle. The seller got pissed and disappeared on us. What happens? That link breaks. Now the deal falls apart, right? So everyone has very clearly outlined job descriptions, and they know exactly what needs to be done. We help each other out when needed, but we do not interfere with each other's business. A salesperson's job is to lock up a contract, pass it off, lock up another contract, pass it off, and keep going. Transaction coordinator, their job is to make sure that we have everything we need for that contract and that it's closable. Title is clear. We're working with title and escrow. We're working with the sellers. And then once we know that's ready to go, at a certain point it gets passed to dispositions to get our buyer going on the property. So the salesperson's not messing with the transaction coordinator when they don't need to. I literally have a sign on his door that basically says, you're walking into his office. Do you need to be asking him the question that you are going to ask him right now? A lot of people are going to say, wow, you're a jerk. No, it's just if you distract that person, he can't move his job, he can't move his contract to the next level. Let's say the salesperson's at an appointment and I'm blowing up their phone because I have a question over and over and over again. It's distracting their time with the seller and they're not going to get a contract, right? So clearly defined lanes for what people need to do was what we've done from the beginning.
Right, and obviously, you know, the growth that you guys have is very structured, and I love that. What was your starting point when you were that solopreneur, and I know you were doing the cell phone thing, you're like, okay, let's try this real estate thing. And then you started getting it going, you got that momentum. What was your first hire? Was it like cold callers? Was it Mike?
Mm-hmm.
What was going on?
So I hired an acquisitions person first. And you're going to have to start doing this too, right? You're going to have to start saying almost your dream board, right? What is it? Outline every role within the business that you're potentially going to need in the next 5 years. And that might be 2 acquisitions people, 1 dispo person, 1 transaction coordinator, 2 leads managers, right? And then you start looking at these responsibilities and you say, who's currently doing these positions now between the 2 of you? And I had to do this when I started. My wife, very similar situation. My wife was doing the answering the phones. She was scheduling the appointments for me. I was going on the appointments, closing the deals, doing the finances, doing the dispositions, doing the marketing. And I started looking at it. I'm like, dang, okay, what is it that I feel like I like doing the most? But then what is it that I feel like I am the best at and the worst at? And those 2 things might not go hand in hand. You might say, man, I love doing acquisitions, but you're starting to realize you're only closing 1 in 6 appointments you go to, and you're like, man, I really like doing it, and yes, I can get better at it, but maybe that's not where I belong. So I was closing a lot of deals at that point, but I said, man, I really like being more of the visionary, and I wanted to start stepping into that role. So by doing that, I couldn't be on the road all day long. So I knew that I needed to hire somebody in either acquisitions or dispositions. So I actually hired dispositions first because I liked the acquisitions role. So I hired Dispo. He came in, started moving my deals, and then I hired a lead manager, and then I hired an acquisitions person. So if I could go back and do it again, I probably would have hired acquisitions first and hired somebody like Mike from day one. But, you don't know what you don't know. So as we continued to hire from that point, I mean, all of a sudden you look and you're like, dang, my team's grown 10 times what it was, right? Now we got a guy out in Texas. We've got people all over the place, and it's pretty cool to see where it's gone. And now I'm in the role I need to be in, where I can literally look over the company and make sure that we are planning a year ahead, and make sure I'm planning the next step, and I'm not in the day-to-day weeds. I don't even attend our weekly team meetings anymore. I used to. I stopped because when I went in there, it pulled me back into the weeds. And I started, right? Well, it gets me excited. I'm like, ooh, an issue. I want to help solve this. And on the other hand, Mike's looking at me like, Scott, get out, dude. You are literally interfering with what I'm trying to do because I wanted to step in. It's just my nature. So I had to pull myself away from that. And I don't even go into those meetings, because if I go in, I will spend the next hour trying to negotiate with a seller or deal with a buyer issue or, something like that. I can't do that because I have to focus on that next level, where we're going next. So when we just started our TV ads, right? And the TV ads were a big thing to get going. It was a lot of work, but it's great. It's really cool to see that happen. But that's because I was able to step out of this role and focus on the next thing, right? You're still very young in your company, so you've got some time before you get to that area. But the thing about hiring that I will say, don't hire too early, because you've got to understand that every single hire you make, then you get an office. That's an expense. Within the office, you've got desks, computers, chairs, pictures for the walls, coffee maker, refrigerator, all this kind of stuff. Once you start doing that, there's no going back. So when you look and say that most wholesale companies are running a profit margin between 20 and 35% in most cases, that means you're making 20 to 35% profit off all the money you bring in. That means you got potentially 70% that's going towards other things. Now, some of that is taxes, things like that, right? We live in California. It's going to continue to go up, right? So, but some of the stuff is needed. So we run high 30s. We hit about 42% on our profit margin for our highest point, which was actually very good for a new business, right? So when we look at that, we're like, all right, that's fantastic. But there's times where you have higher expenses and you see that number drop. Now, if you have a ton of employees in the office, it does eat into your paycheck, because guess what? You have the deals like we talked about, the $70,000 deal. That went south. Now, if that happens on 4 deals and you have a negative in front of your number for the month, guess what? You're still paying your employees. You're still paying your rent. You're still paying for all that stuff that you need to keep your business running. So you as a business owner will take that hit until you start getting enough savings in your account. Now, one of the smartest things my mentor told me that I still do for today, and I will highly recommend you do this. For every wholesale fee you have come in, you need to have multiple bank accounts. You need to have an income account where that is the only place where all of your money comes into. So you get a $50,000 wholesale fee. It goes into your income account. Then you take that money and you have an expense account, a tax account, excuse me, and a profit account. So you need to come up with percentages as far as what you're going to put into each of those accounts. And every wholesale fee, so if you got, say, a $100,000 wholesale fee, if you're going to put 50% of it in the expense account, you're going to move 50 grand over to that expense account, just a bank transfer. So now that 50 grand is your rent. It is basically everything it takes to run your business. Employees, pens, paper, ink, cell phone bills, anything like that. So you move 50% over there. Now you say, what is the percentage that I'm potentially going to have to pay for taxes if I do everything wrong this year and I don't have enough write-offs? So I put 30% in that account. Now, will I ever pay 30% in taxes? Hell no. But what if you got a bill at the end of the year for $400,000 and you already spent all the money? So what for me, I put the 30% in that account, and then the rest goes to a profit account. Now, the profit account, that's my money. That's my money. Now, I'm not pulling that out and paying myself because I'm getting hit with 30% taxes, 40% taxes the minute I pay myself that paycheck. So it sits there. So if the business hits a rough spot and your expense account is getting too low, the first place you're going to pull from is the profit account. That's your reward money, right? You're not rewarded because you don't have enough money to run your business. So now you pull from that profit account and stick it over into the expense account. Now, when you start getting enough money in the expense account, you can call it a loan and transfer the money back to the profit account, right? When you're ready. But by having those 4 accounts and doing this with every single fee that comes in, I have not run into a money situation in my business one time. Because if you put all the money in an expense account, it's very easy to say, oh, I'm going to increase our marketing. But you forget you're still going to have to pay taxes. You forget about all those things that you wouldn't normally realize that you've got to spend money on. Now, when my tax accountant comes through at the end of the quarter and says, hey, your quarterly, you're going to pay this much. And I'm like, well, dang, they're telling me to pay 50 grand for the quarter, but I got 200,000 set aside. Now I can transfer that additional money to the expense account or the profit account and increase my marketing or do something like that. But managing it that way really helped me get to that point, and I still do it that way today. So every single dollar that comes into the business, even if it's a reimbursement, like an EMD reimbursement, it always goes to the income account. We don't even give the wire info for the other accounts out because no money should be going into it. So it makes a big difference, really big difference. So it's definitely something you should consider doing.
That's good that you said that because, that it sounds just like everything that's, we read. But the thing is, I haven't implemented it.
Yep.
For you to tell me that, I love it. I'm going to definitely have to implement that right away. Yeah. And I love what you said, from how big your business is now to when you started. So I've never ran into a money issue. Yeah, that's good to hear.
Yeah, and we've had, I think we've had 3 months within the business where we had a negative in front of the number. But you're going to find that will happen as you're starting because there are issues that happen with escrows. There are things like that where you're like, oh my gosh, I've got $200,000 coming in on the 31st. Well, now something happens and it's on the 1st, right? So technically you took a loss for that month, but the next month's bigger within one day. So you will have that stuff occur, but that's part of the reason why we set it up the way we set it up with those different accounts, because we know where to pull from. And I always want to say, if I'm pulling money out of my account, which is the profit account, I'm putting that money back there, right? That's my money. So that's really important to me to set it up that way to make sure that everything's tracked properly. And of course, we have QuickBooks, my CPA, and everything on top of that. But that at least helps me be able to see really quickly how much money we have for the business. So.
Right. No, that's awesome, and that's great advice. And we all need to do that, especially in this business. As we all know, wholesalers get in, they have 1 or 2 deals, and done.
Yes.
Put their money aside.
Yep, you nailed that. So what else can I answer for you while we're here?
All right, I guess I have one last question, and this one's probably a 101 question, and that is, so as a solopreneur, I have a bunch of hot leads coming in, but I found out that what I've been doing is I've been kind of calling my those leads and building that rapport and seeing where they're at around the evening time. What would you recommend, and what does your team look like with their follow-up?
So when it comes to acquisitions, I mean, they're going to call when they've got to call, right? Typically, my team is within that 9 to 5 for 90% of our leads. But you will have some people that want to call in the evening. And when my leads team is actually taken in that initial call, they're asking those people, when is a good time for you to talk to our acquisitions manager? And if they say, oh, I'm not off work till 6 o'clock, they're going to note that, and they're actually scheduling an appointment for our team to call that lead at that time. So we keep very good notes as far as when people are available and when they're not, to make sure that we're calling them when we can get in touch with them. So we'll call whenever. I mean, Mike's had a call come in at 2 o'clock in the morning and he's picked it up, right? I mean, if it's money and it's that money line ringing, pick it up. So, yeah, make sure you're doing that. But I mean, it's not about our time, it's about the seller's time. And we want to make sure we're available when the sellers are available, because that's when they're going to sell us their houses. So basically, you're at the mercy of them. Do what the seller wants, but always pose that question. When is the best time of day to reach you? Very simple question. Throw it in the notes. Done. Easy enough, right?
And put them on that automatic follow-up.
Yeah. And
no, not all of them, but we've got some good, I've been getting some good replies from that automated follow-up, and it's great because you can pick up back up with that conversation left off.
Yeah, you do. I mean, automated follow-up is fantastic, but don't forget the manual follow-up.
Exactly, and that's what we, like I said, that's what I do in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them, that's when they kind of get off work and stuff like that. So I set that time about 2 to 3 hours, and I'm just calling them. Yeah,
and you can judge them by their age a lot too. I mean, if they're older people, a lot of times they actually prefer a morning call. So, because for them, if you start interrupting them during their dinner time and stuff like that, they really take offense to that. People like us, right, we're just like, oh, well, I just won't answer the phone, right? But for them, they always pick up. They always pick up that old landline that no one has anymore because they don't want to miss a call. So that's something to consider. Is older people are typically retired off during the day. They have the ability to take care of that stuff during the time where a lot of us are working. All right. Well, Cody's giving me the we're out of time thing here. So I want to make sure we took care of some of the things that you wanted here. So
yeah, Scott, I couldn't be more thankful. Not as you can tell, I was funny, and this is a cheesy moment, but like when you say, "Hey, why don't we just hop on the phone?" and then I said, "Hey, look." So me and my lady, I think we're in our room, and I say, "Oh my gosh, look, Scott wants to hit me up," and like I would pay this guy assignment fee to talk to him, So yeah, again, I appreciate it, and I mean, you have such a big heart. Keep your team up. If there's anything I can do, I'm just right around the corner as well. I'll send you this deal that we talked about, and maybe we can work something out.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it. Are you in my meetup group?
No, I'm not.
So you should join that. We haven't been able to have one because of COVID, but we'll start back up once they allow us to. But we do those in the Corona area. If you look for SoCal Real Estate Wholesalers on Meetup.com, I mean, there was about 1,100 people in that group before COVID. I don't know how many will be in there post-COVID, but we'll see. But I mean, we've had meetings with 100, 150 people in. Flew Max in, he came to one of them. Sean Terry came and spoke at it. Jalen White, if you know who he is. We've had a lot of people that people pay $1,000 to go see speak at an event that have come to our free meetup. So, yeah, we've got a lot of cool things, and we had a lot of people lined up. The All In guys, we were trying to get them to come. Pace Morby, a lot of these guys that people follow, we had lined up and ready to go, and then, of course, they won't let us have our meetings. So once they allow that to happen, we'll start that back up again, and there's a lot of people in that room that are very successful in the area, and it'd be good for you to kind of get to know them as well. Because some of them are trying to get a first deal. Some of them are, door knocking every day. There's a guy in there, he door knocks every day, and he brings in a lot of leads door knocking, and he's very good. So there's a lot of people in there to have conversations with, and some of them are potentially drivers for you as well, if you're looking for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm definitely looking for people, you know, that are doing way more than I am. I have so much to learn, and that's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to. I think we got until November, everything starts opening up.
We'll see. I mean, I don't know at this point.
We'll see.
Yeah, so we'll see what our governor does, but I'll keep my mouth shut on him. But cool. Well, I'm glad we did this, and yeah, if you want to send over that deal, send it over. If you want to let it go, let it go. It's completely up to you. We can take a look at it, but, you know, up to you and what you want to do with that. So.
Let's do it. I'll send it over and see what we can do.
All right, man. Well, thanks for joining, and Cody will probably get this thing edited and get this thing up as well, so you'll see it pop up here pretty soon. But, you know, stay in touch, and hopefully you get out there, and this helps you make a ton of money. And we'll probably work together on some deals at some point, I imagine. So,
dude, you know, I'll be down with that. Like I said, I think one of the biggest things I'm taking away right now is this notary. I'm liking that. So
it's expensive.
I got that in my notes right here.
Yeah, it definitely adds up. If you send Cody a message, he can find out from my transaction coordinator who we use, since we're in the same area. And they're nationwide, but they've treated us really well. So if you go ahead and reach out, Cody can get you that info, so you don't have to go try to find a new new notary service or anything like that. So
awesome,
cool.
All right, Cody, make it look good.
Huh.
Yeah, I
he
will.
tries to do that to me every day. All right, man. We'll talk to you later.
All right, guys. Talk soon.
All right, see ya. I hope you enjoyed this Let's Talk episode with Aaron. If you have any other questions, make sure to leave them below. And if you want a chance to be on this, make sure to send me a message through IG.